It is though. I like that. I like the fact that you know what's really cool about art that obviously everybody else has figured out, but like everything else in my life, I just have to read it in a book and go, "Did you know that the sun revolves around the earth?" But the point is that
What?
just dude, I feel like I have no street smarts at all. None. I have a lot of book smarts purely
You
because
didn't
I've read a
learn
lot.
any street smarts growing up in the mean streets of Newtown?
Yeah, all right.
Didn't live the
That's
thug
true.
life?
I did learn that. Yeah,
The inner west thug life? Didn't learn how to roll... Surely you would have learned how to roll a joint, man. Newtown.
All right, knew how to roll a joint, knew how to get wristies in a graveyard without getting caught, learned how to get cheap chicken deals, just being like,
That's
"Wait,
very
can I get-"
specific. Wristies in a graveyard without getting caught.
Yeah, dude, that, look,
Was that a
if
thing?
anyone is from Newtown High, tell me if that's still going down. The kids from like years 7 to 9 going, the cemetery I'm talking about in Newtown. And they sit in, I never did it. A, because I never had the opportunity, but B, I really hope that I wouldn't have ever been that desperate. That was something that like the
Fuck,
goth
I would
kids
do it
did.
today.
It's essentially necromancy, dude. Like, I really hope that you're like, okay, you have your own apartment.
Well,
you
I
do
actually-
realize
Yeah,
that.
I know. Yeah. So I really don't
Still, I
need to
wanna
be in a
get freaky.
graveyard.
Oh fuck! It's
was on
so
the
scary
table.
thinking about that. Just
not with a girl in high school, but
no,
more my age.
no. You just want one of those like pornographic goosebumps covers
Wristies-
of a dead hand just going.
No girls. I don't think I've ever. Nah, I've never come from a hand job.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
I
actually,
don't think. I'm trying to think. No, I have to finish it off.
yeah, I think so too. Well, there's like a couple of very good counter examples that I have in my mind, but the constant is no, you don't.
Yeah, I mean we've just had so much practice from when we were 12, 13.
Yeah. It's comforting.
Can't compete. Anyway, this is good. This is how the podcast works. If you knew, we have 10 or so minutes of very random banter at the start, and
Yeah,
then
mostly
we get
just
into,
talk about sexual frustration.
Oh yeah, and then even though he's in a long-term relationship, well that's why. Yeah.
Yeah, they go hand in hand. It is just
Wow.
being an incel.
Wow, who's actually getting married out there?
You know,
Just like 5% of guys. That's it.
oh yeah, for sure. It's like dudes that are not on the A team of Australia's cricket, but those like stand-in dudes. They are getting a lot of puss, and they don't have to work that hard.
That's just so precise.
But can you deny it?
I would.
You
I
know
mean,
that
I
they
would
are.
have. No, what? Wait, what? So like the A grade cricketers, but not the ones in the actual team.
Yeah, A-grade cricketers that are like the supplements. Those guys.
Really?
I know, because I know a couple of them, and they just live in an apartment, and their entire life is just this conveyor belt of new ass walking in.
Sports stars, and I would just say sports stars in. Well, cricketers and footy players for sure.
That's true, but they do not get as much as the B-grade ones, because first off, women don't know that much about sport, so they're like, oh, yeah, I think I've seen you on TV before. But the other thing is, the ones that are in the A grade, they have to at least focus on sport a lot. These guys don't. That's why they're not on the front bench. And they know they're not good enough to be there. So what else are you going to fill your time
Wow,
with?
you really know nothing about cricket.
I
do
know,
you?
I know.
The front bench. Wow. I mean, anyway, let's get it.
You can fill in the gaps.
Let's get into the. What did I want to talk about? Suffering.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about it, Neil.
So I've just been thinking about it a little bit lately,
Because of your
and
incel endeavours.
well, yeah, lack of endeavors.
Lack of endeavours,
More
yeah.
than anything.
Yes, of course.
But just it's a concept that's been explored throughout philosophy for a time immemorial. But people who find virtue in their suffering, and I think that I've just been noticing that on even just a day-to-day level, people I talk to, and I've been noticing it in myself as well, that people think they're for most people, we think we're owed something if we've suffered to a considerable degree.
Owed?
Yeah.
Expand on that.
So I just the thing that brought this to my mind was I was having a conversation a couple of days ago, and I've had this conversation with a few people where I talk about what I did after high school. And what I did straight out of high school is I took a gap year, and I started teaching improvisation and drama at my old high school. Now, my high school was very generous. They let me use the drama room rent-free, and I'd already been doing it in lunchtimes for 3 or 4 years, so a lot of the kids knew about it. I'd performed at assemblies and things like that to popularize it, and as a result, I had 3 classes during the week, 25 to 30 kids in each class, and they were paying $10 a week. So I was just raking it in as a 17, 18-year-old. I was making $800 to $900 a week. Working,
that is very enterprising.
Yeah, working 4.5 hours a week. And I
What?
wasn't even doing any other... Well, I was preparing the lessons and driving back and forth, don't get me wrong. And I was charging them... Look, I was charging them $10 a week, so it was not an exorbitant amount. I think that's quite fair. I don't think I was, making a bad deal out of it or anything like that. And as soon as whenever I tell people that, especially when I told people that when I was younger and people were still working casual jobs, and you know what casual jobs are like if you're working at fast food restaurants or cafes, it's pretty long hours.
That
and
$10.
Yeah,
each
it's
hour.
whatever it is, $10-14 an hour, and you're working in much trying circumstances, and people would just get annoyed at me.
Yeah, of course.
And so, and then that made me think, like, why are they getting annoyed at me? I think it's because they think, well, I'm working 8 hours a day, 5 hours a week, and I'm only making half as much as you, and you're working 4.5 hours a week. And I was, like I said, I didn't inherit anything. I wasn't handed down a company or anything like that. And there is, I think, an element of, hey, my suffering should, if your suffering is so much less than mine, yet you're being so much, you're gaining such a greater amount of reward for it, that's not fair. And I've even observed it in myself to a certain degree. I'm sure you felt this as well when you look at some of the things that get a lot of attention on social media, and you think that's just not fair. That's just not fair that like an Insta girl who posts a photo of her art. Here we go, back to the incel mentality here. An Insta girl
took about 5 minutes.
Yeah, posts a photo of her ass can get that much attention and that much more money when we put so much effort into our videos. In the same way, I'm sure a filmmaker would be looking at us thinking, oh, these guys just do videos. I've spent a year creating this short film and it got viewed by 10 people at a festival or something like that. And then you can just... Don't you think you see it also in older people in the way that they, I work my ass off this many hours a week, yet this wanker can earn this much money. You see it in relationships. You see it with older women who seem to think younger girls that get out of a relationship, oh, your generation is just so easy to throw the towel in. It's so easy for you guys to throw the towel in. You don't suffer in the same way we did, and that sort of mentality. I'm just seeing it all over the place, and I just wanted to explore it and talk about it with you. And
well, dude, is it suffering or is it envy? It sounds like the main point is envy.
I think they're interconnected, though. I don't think that envy would exist if they didn't have that suffering, because they're obviously not happy with what they've had to endure, and as a result, rather than question their choices and what they've done, it's much easier to just think that the world is unjust and, oh, it's not for this person got a free ride.
That's true.
See it in politics as well.
It's actually, dude, you have identified the root. Well, Buddhists, I guess, identified it before, but yeah, I don't know if you came to it yourself or whatever, but it is the main... Buddhism always says that everything kind of just comes down to, just basically being like complacent or suffering. That's pretty much it.
Right.
Really, at the end of the day, all the emotions are just a variation of those two things.
There you go.
And I think you've done it. You're right. It is the very specific examples that you were giving just then are examples of envy. It is just that category of suffering. But suffering is basically just that mental state of not being complacent.
Yeah.
So everything is but another way is like complacent or not complacent.
But do you think that for people to not feel envious when they're suffering, they need to adopt some sort of ideology that says that there is virtue in whatever they're suffering for? I mean, you even just take religion, like Christianity, for example. There's so much about suffering for the cross in that. So, they're foregoing so many... little pleasures. They're foregoing their own happiness in many instances because they're suffering for a cause.
Yeah, and that's why I don't think. Well, that's why I don't know, wankers and smart people that wankers follow. Let's just exclude the wankers from that. But I think that smart people are always, your Richard Dawkins of the world and stuff. They're just like God, But they will always give like a special exemption to Buddhism because they've kind of identified it a little bit better than Christianity
sure.
has. So as Christianity, for instance, they have that idea.
Christianity weaponizes it.
Turns it into
Buddhism
a virtue.
Identifies it.
Identifies it as a thing that you want to be avoiding, whereas Christianity says that you should sort of sacrifice things for that and it's just a less precise way of saying that, because Buddhism would be saying the same thing, that like you should give up the chocolate, but it is saying that because when you don't have the chocolate you are sad, so don't have the chocolate and then you'll never be sad. So like Christianity's kind of getting to the same message, but it's got like a few steps that it's sort of missing, I guess.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about people being envious and then them just being in like a non-complacent state, it does come back to that point that I guess when you look at the most successful people, when you break it down in religion in the US, it is Buddhists, and it is because they are constantly moving away and they have techniques that they have learned from kids of how to avoid suffering.